Hello and welcome again to the Mental Health and Wellbeing CBT, EMDR and Beyond podcast. I am Jaime and I am a therapist and director of the online therapy clinic. Today we're going to go through a podcast that follows up from the previous podcast on intrusive thoughts and how they look like and so on. I hope you enjoyed the last podcast, some of nice comments and a nice for that email, so I appreciate. What we are going to do today, we're going to be talking about intrusive thoughts in OCD, in generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. So as we said, intrusive thoughts are the norm, and that is the main message I want everyone who is listening to take from this. I want you people to realize that intrusive thoughts is what we all experience. Research says 80 to 90%, I believe, is human nature, because we all have brains and we all think. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be talking today about intrusive thoughts on OCD, GAD, and panic. So let's start. So, intrusive thoughts in OCD are thoughts, images, urges that can vary from violent, sexual, religious, blasphemous, contamination, illness-related, moral themes, pedophilia themes. There'll be a wide variety of intrusions, and there is some research where they give 6 domains of them, and then it's very important to know that this is what are so common that we can split them in domains. Okay, so what we know is that unlike other intrusive thoughts, or unlike fleeting thoughts that just pop, these obsessive thoughts, they persist, they feel sticky, they increase your distress, they go beyond the initial appearance of a simple sort of thought. Okay, what happens is that some people experience thoughts after a event. So some examples, let's say childbirth. Some people might start having intrusive thoughts about the dangers of a child. They maybe never had thoughts before. Some people may be accused of something, or some people may have at some point wish someone harm, and that did happen, and that could lead also to intrusive thoughts. These can be from early childhood. Some people that report to have them from the very young age, 3, 4, 5 years old, they remember the thoughts. There is some research, some theories, some suggestions that these are sometimes biological factors, that are due to illnesses, there are life experiences, there are some family history of intrusive thoughts. So there are various reasons, and one of the things that people keep asking, why do I have intrusive thoughts? How can I get rid of them? How can they stop? It's a question that many people ask, and there is a lot of research out there how it may happen, how hypothetically these intrusive thoughts happen, and ultimately there is no actual answer as per today and as per my knowledge. There is no answer of why we all have intrusive thoughts. My take is going to be, we have minds think, then they think what they want, and sometimes they are uncontrollable, they are persistent, they are against our values, and they keep coming back, they stick around. So it's not an actual answer of which these intrusive thoughts come up. I having more asked when it's around OCD than other difficulties. Okay, so what happens is that we can also have these urges, as we explain, and in OCD, well, then the intrusive thought is against our moral code, our persons, our values, and what that leads is to have a distress and a ego dystonic sense. So I don't want the thoughts, they are not here. They are here, why are they coming, and so on. And that becomes a chain or a cycle. What then happens is that sometimes people have intrusive thoughts and they are in the mind and they go along with life and they don't impact them in some other impact. What some people have noticed is that whether it's OCD or any of the other things we're going to go through later on, these thoughts, they get triggered, they get prompted by news, social media, listening of others, thoughts, inappropriate thoughts that we have that they might not be, and then the obsession starts. What is the difference with OCD, or what happens with OCD, is that there is the rituals, there's the compulsions. Both can be approaching or avoiding. So it tends to be more approaching. However, there is a lot of people trying to avoid thinking about things, trying to block the things, and that's what also will lead to the intrusions to come up more and more and more. What happens with OCD is that the more we try to fight those thoughts, the more we're trying to not have them, push them away, not pay attention, the more likely they are going to keep coming back. So that is from the point of view of intrusive thoughts in OCD, okay? And like I said, they will come up, down, then up and down, and they will appear. And if you think about any anxiety disorder or any mood disorder, and I don't want to say disorder because I'm saying it just out of years of working. Any person who is feeling stress, who is feeling anxious, who is feeling fearful, who is feeling low in mood, who is feeling embarrassed, shame, guilty, these people, when those are because of life events or for situational moments, that is going to press, that's going to get you tighten. That's going to be, your walls are going to increase and when it's going to close up. So that's what it's going to be worsening the intrusions of any kind of intrusions, not only worsen them, that the other people, as we mentioned before, that people, as we mentioned in the previous episode, people would do the best they can to get those intrusions off or to stop them impacting their life. So the more stress in your life, the more personal life, the more change, the more uncertainty, the more it compacts, the more it pressures, and the more intrusions you're having, the more you're responding to them. So one of the first things I always discuss with people is, let's start to identify when there are external factors that they are pushing you, that are trapping you. How I explain this, sometimes I'll be more in detail on this, maybe in another video. I always, in my imagery, so I have a lot of imagery in my mind, and I get, rather than thinking in words, I think in images. I get those films where the mazes and the labyrinths are, and there is always that wall that starts crunching in, right? So when your life is start crunching in, with the walls that start, so life is that maze, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's straight, sometimes it's just the wall starts crunching. What you are going to do, you're going to push it, you're going to fight it, you're going to climb it, you're surviving. So if you put that in the context of your intrusive thoughts, what happens is that you're doing that by engaging on those behaviors, approaching, avoiding behaviors. In OCD, we call them compulsion or rituals, right? So that is what I always envisage my thoughts getting worse or my images getting worse when then I have all this stress. Things stress, getting in a partnership, separating from a partner, illness from loved ones, changing jobs, buying a new house, selling a house, getting evicted from a house, having debt, all of that will crunch. And if you are experiencing intrusive thoughts, and that could be of any kind, as we will go through the series, then you're going to be more likely to have them. In the case of OCD, what I'm having, if you have violent thoughts, you might start to have more imagery or thoughts of attacking people, murdering people, knifing people, and so on and so forth. Okay? So I hope that sort of gives a bit of a element of the intrusive thoughts. Now, so now we go into intrusive thoughts in anxiety or generalized anxiety. So GAD. What happens is that the thoughts are slightly different, and there are more, and this is where it becomes slightly more difficult to differentiate. And let's put it out there is a lot of overlap with OCD and generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. There's a lot of overlap. And then what happens is that they are very comorbid. What happens with GAD is that the thoughts of the worries that you're having, so more of the intrusive thoughts are more of a worries, more of a sometimes of what ifs, future orientated. They are more things like day to day, more things that they are more likely to happen. So financial strain, missing deadlines on work, relationships, setbacks in a project. All of them, they are more likely to happen. Falling out with friends, restaurant not being good. And what you notice is that those keep coming back, and people notice they peak. So there are times when people worries more, there's more what ifs, they have more intrusions about future, very unlikely events to happen. However, they are realistic. So you may miss a train, you may forgot your hop on, you may go to a restaurant and be disappointed, your wedding may go bad, your relationship cannot work out. You may be cheated, you may not be cheated. One of the things that intrusive thoughts and anxiety disorder, or anxiety, and apologies about the disorder, and anxiety, and heightened anxiety has, is the sense of uncertainty and the inability of coping. So if you think something bad is going to happen in the future, and you're not going to be able to cope, and you haven't got the skills, and you don't know when it's going to happen, well, anyone will be feeling anxious about it, right? Anyone will be feeling anxious about it. So what people tend to develop is to have that over preparation, over checking restaurants, checking flights, checking reviews, looking at things online. Nowadays, very common, constantly checking online for things. What happens is that those thoughts keep coming back. The what if, it never really satisfies. It never goes away. And the more important, I think, also in OCD, is that the doubt is constant. It doesn't matter how much you check, you're always gonna doubt. So the what if I got it wrong? What if I didn't check everything? So then we continue doing more and more. So what happens is many people will try to problem solve things that they are so far-fetched in the future that they are not in the present. And they are missing out the actual interaction. They are missing out the friends. They are missing out work. They are missing out in the here because they live in the future. And that future is always catastrophic. It's always negative. Always looking on the dark side of what is to come. I always say it, and I sometimes say it, I never come across anyone worrying about good things happening in the future. No one worries about good things. So what is the intrusion will be always a negative thing of what is going to happen. Right? Because we are designed to survive. And that's what I believe. We're designed, we're clever, we're intelligent, we're survivors. We go where we are because what we've done and how we survive. So your mind is designed to problem solve issues, problems, danger. Most of the time, it's designed to that. For various reasons, maybe that's not possible. Maybe some biological, some neurological, there may be things that people are not, the majority of people, so I'm talking for the majority of people, but the specific events, there be always differences. So your mind is designed to survive. So that's what you're gonna, that's what you're doing. The difference is that you're perceiving danger everywhere. I hope that sort of explains a bit of the intrusions as we understand them in generalized anxiety disorders. And once again, It could be urges, it could be images, it could be memories, it could be thoughts, right? Now, finally, we are moving on to panic. Once again, I'll be having a bit of a drink. This time, no one said I'm talking. No one commented on the speed of talk. So I've been trying to reduce. So I appreciate. So in panic, or when we're having panic, it's not an anxiety attack. It's different than a panic disorder, right? So that's an important thing. So an anxiety attack might be when we feel overwhelmed with anxiety. I think we might not cope with the situation, and so on and so forth. What the difference is when we're thinking about panic or panic disorder, with or without agoraphobia, it's about having the thought, an intrusive thought. And let me go back a minute. So when we are thinking, I'm not going to be able to cope with what is coming, that also could be classed as an intrusive thought, because you're unwantedly, your brain is popping, you can't cope, you can't cope, you can't cope. Where if you would not feel overwhelmed with emotions, and you would say, right, I can cope, let's take a step back and say that I can't cope, I'm getting this thought. What is in my control? How can I cope with this? Have I coped before? And you may be in a situation that you are not, that you need more resources. You can problem solve, you can find, you can get help, right? So let's put that in the context as well, that sometimes people have the thoughts of, I can't cope, yet they are more able to cope, that their mind is sort of telling them what the thoughts are being into. So what happens with the panic? When we're talking about panic, we're talking about panic attacks, panic disorder, right? Not having anxiety attacks. What happens is that sometimes people are in public places, in a home, and by a physical sensation or by something outside, so we call them internal or external triggers. Internal triggers, heart palpitations, stomach ache, raised temperature. External triggers, slamming door, closed room, bright lights. And we start feeling, or we start having the intrusive thought that something bad is going to happen to us. So I'm having a heart attack, I'll pass out, I lost control, I'll embarrass myself, I'll wake myself, I'll faint. And the really interesting thing about panic and panic attacks is that only by reading the words, and this I tested that many times, reading the words of suffocation, I'll have a, apologies. Oh, that was loud. Apologies. So by reading the word suffocation, and I'm gonna choke, people, start panicking and they feel the sensations of choking, right? So that is one of the really interesting things. So when people are having a physical sensation that triggers that I'm having a heart attack or I'm gonna choke, then that intrusive thought of I'm going to choke is gonna worsen your anxiety as it was. So then what people do, and we all do, we look out for things, we are hyper focused on our physical sensations, we look at escape routes, we look at what we can do not to pass out and so on. So that's very important, and I'm going to say these are perfectly normal intrusive thoughts. This is also perfectly normal ways of coping, yeah? Because what we want is people to cope. What we want is to survive. Apologies, what we're trying is to survive, and that will be it. So now, what I'm going to ask you is, I hope this has been helpful. As you know, on the description, you got the email podcast@online-cbt.com. And also you have links to the clinic, social media pages, and some information on how you can book some therapy, either for panic, GAD, OCD, or anything else. We have a wide range of adult and young people, children therapists. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to, again, that mindful exercise that I personally enjoy and I practice very often. So what I'm going to ask you, as usual, you feel safe, you're not driving, you're not in a public place, you can close your eyes. If not, you can do this with your eyes open. Today we are going to introduce a bit of tapping. So what I'm going to ask you is I'm going to be asking you to tap on the side of your leg or with your hands inside your jumper, as I have, or at the back of your pocket trousers, you can do that. I'm going to invite you to do this tapping. If it feels comfortable and if you feel safe. And if you're driving or you are in a public transport and you want just to listen, just listen, okay? So what I'm going to ask you is to start breathing in and breathing out much longer. I'm going to ask you to breathe in and breathe out much longer. And I'm going to ask you to start tapping right, left, right, left. And what I'm going to ask you is you don't need to, if it feels too much, breathing in and tapping, and you're having an intrusive thought, I'm not doing it right. I can't ever think straight. I'm going to ask you to make the choice of not tapping. And continue breathing in and breathing out. Most important, because it is very common that people cannot do both things at the same time at the beginning. And with the kindness and compassion, I'm going to ask you to remind yourself, may I be kind to myself? May I be compassionate to myself? May I remind that beginnings are always difficult. May I remind myself that I'm trying the best I can. I'm taking a deep breath in and a longer breath out. I'm going to ask you to perhaps go to that calm place we identified last time. And if you can't, it's the first time you're here, I invite you to go to a lovely, calm, tranquil place that you enjoy. Somewhere that perhaps you've been, most importantly, you've been alone, or you've been with people that has been far, something, there's no one there to create any distress or any intrusive thoughts. I'm going to ask you, as you're tapping in and breathing, if that feels right for you, to find the most comfortable seat in that calm place. And to then go through what we discussed today, those intrusive thoughts, how they collectively we all experience them, whether it is in a panic, whether it is for excessive anxiety, whether it is for intrusive thoughts and obsessions. I'm breathing in and breathing out. I'm going to ask you to take in the last breath out, to look at the sky and blow these clouds away, seeing how they go in the horizon and how the calming, passionate, and kind sun shows up. And noticing the warmth of that sun on your skin, the compassion that the sun light beams, that they are healing and kind, bring to you, and they touch your skin. And as you take another breath in and a longer breath out. And when a thought comes in, I'm going to ask you to your breath out, put it in your hand. Imagine you can breathe it out in your hand. Looking at that thought in your hand, whether it's an image, or it's a belief, or an urge, give it a shape, give it a color, give it a temperature. And then tell that thought, acknowledging that thought that is there and there is nothing you can do. That is intrusive, is normal. And you can let it go. You don't have to respond. You don't have to be emotionally affected. So your next breath out, as you take a deep breath out, breathe it out, let that thought go, and transform into a butterfly and fly away towards the horizon until it disappears. And most importantly, noticing your body, how it feels when the thought goes and disappears. Taking a deep breath in and a longer breath out, and as you to do again, if another thought pops in, and if not, enjoying the scenery. Enjoying the calmness of that place. Taking a deep breath in, a longer breath out. When you're ready, and as you to return to the here and now, open your eyes, or continue driving, come to the now. So, I hope you enjoyed this brief meditation. This is an exercise you can practice, and I invite you to practice it over the next few weeks until our next podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, please follow us, please register or sign up or whatever you do on the podcast. Subscribe. That's the word. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.